Thank you so much for joining us today. First, we want to get your reaction to the tragic news that unfolded in the early hours this morning, where a shooting on the University of New Mexico left one dead and one other person injured. Now, you're a grad there yourself, so as you've run for governor of New Mexico, what is your message to people watching right now who have been plagued by shootings in areas that should feel safe?
Absolutely. It's heartbreaking. And not only did I graduate from UNM, but my child graduated from UNM. And my child lived on campus their first year of college. And so, and look, it's at a time when the students are getting oriented to UNM before their first year, away from their parents. And it's just heartbreaking. So yes, to every place of education, every campus, every school, every higher education campus across our state, students should feel safe. And so we need to make sure that law enforcement has the tools they need to keep violent criminals off our streets, to keep illegal firearms off our streets. My hope is that the state police, as I know they're still searching for the suspect right now, I hope they get that person into custody so that the parents can breathe a sigh of relief for their children on campus today.
And it seems like so much tragic news is coming out of New Mexico right now. Within the last 24 hours, our newsroom received more tragic video of flooding into our studio coming from Ruidoso and Vado. And this is just a week after flooding in the Ruidoso area left 3 people dead, including 2 children. How do you address these concerns to residents who are seeing this on top of the wildfires the state is also dealing with at the moment?
Yes, of course. Well, with respect to wildfires, they're getting worse because of climate change. Right? We have to do our best. Look, nature is our best ally in our fight against climate change, so ensuring that we can make sure those ecosystems can work the way they're supposed to work. I had a chance to go to Ruidoso just to help out. I thought I could help a little bit with some of the folks who were dealing with the aftermath of that, and yes, the floods were devastating. And so it's this in the face of all the cuts that this administration in Washington, D.C. is making to FEMA. You know, folks can't get someone on the phone to even talk about what their experience has been and how they can get the federal government's help in dealing with the loss of their homes or their businesses. And so I recognize that this is a big job for everyone, and the state, of course, will have to step up and make sure that we are addressing these issues. It's going to unfortunately get worse, I think, before it gets better. But working hard to keep our ecosystems intact is the best thing that we can do moving forward.
And can you tell us a little bit more about those conversations that you had with people when you were in Ruidoso after those floods?
Oh, absolutely. Well, we were fortunate to go to a site where it was the site where they were making meals and for people, and so we helped ensure that those meals got loaded onto trucks and out to the communities where they need them most. And then we also helped to unload some donations that people brought in. And so, yes, people, you know, it's just sort of foundational work. People need a hot meal when they're dealing with this kinds of tragedy. And so we did what we could do. We brought some donations with, you know, to help in making the sandbags. We noticed that there were a lot of sandbags that were around some of these areas. And so we were grateful that we had an opportunity to at least help out a little bit. And that's what New Mexico is best at, bringing communities together, bringing people together to help each other in our time of need.
Ms. Haaland, let's talk about your experience at the White House. You were the first Indigenous woman to take on the role of Secretary of the Interior beginning in 2021. Now, for your viewers watching right now, can you break down that title and why it impacts them?
Yes, of course. Well, here, look, most of our public lands are in the West. We have vast acres of lands across the West that are managed by the Bureau of Land Management, the National Park Service, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and those are all bureaus and offices located at the Department of the Interior. And so for my role, And namely, I should say, under the Department of the Interior is the Bureau of Indian Affairs. So the bureau that is responsible for upholding the trust and treaty obligations of our nation's 574 federally recognized tribes. That job seemed very meaningful to me as the first Native American to serve in a president's cabinet. I'll say that while we were there, we moved our clean energy transition forward. There were many transmission lines that happened across the West here in New Mexico that brought power, clean energy power to homes across the West. We also worked hard to conserve land in New Mexico, something that's incredibly important to people here. Our public lands and our sacred sites we revere here in New Mexico, so I was really happy to have the opportunity to do that. And of course, working really hard on the Federal Indian Boarding School Initiative was something that was very important to me and so many of the Indigenous federal public servants who worked at the department. We were happy to ensure that that history is never forgotten in our country. The history of the boarding schools where families were separated and children were taken from their communities. That lasted for about 150 years in our country. And so I was really grateful to have an opportunity to bring that to light.
Let's talk about another topic that needs to have a bigger spotlight at the moment. If elected governor, how will you address the crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls? The Turquoise Alert was launched in New Mexico in 2022 and signed into law by Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham. Is this enough, though? What more can be done?
Thank you for the question, and I'm so grateful that the New Mexico legislature and Governor Lujan Grisham care so much about this important issue. I think the Turquoise Alert will really help us to ensure that we can address when someone is missing. I will say that just several years ago, nobody thought about this issue. When Native women and Native people in our Indian communities across the state went missing, it hardly gained any attention at all. I know that Governor Lujan Grisham created a task force here in New Mexico to address this issue. It's likely that this task force was instrumental in ensuring that the Turquoise Alert was passed in the state legislature. Very grateful that it did and that Governor Lujan Grisham signed that into law. As Secretary of, I will say first, as Congresswoman for New Mexico's 1st District, we passed the the Not Invisible Act that started a commission to study this issue and give recommendations to the federal government on how we can deal with this. I also started as Secretary the Missing and Murdered Unit within the Bureau of Indian Affairs so that we could also solve cold cases that people had forgotten about. And I think the bottom line is with this issue is helping families to deal with their loss. They want to know what happened to their loved one, and it isn't up to the family to play detective and go out looking for their family members. That is the job of professionals, of the police, law enforcement agencies to find these people, to investigate these crimes, and to bring information to light so that families can have closure if that's the issue. And of course to find people hopefully in time before something really tragic happens.
Let's dig a little deeper here to your personal story where you were very open about your sobriety. A jarring statistic, according to the CDC, shows New Mexico's alcohol-related death rate was actually twice the national average. So will addressing this issue be a top priority for you?
So New Mexico absolutely needs to invest in addiction services. We have had, addiction has been a terrible, people have befallen this horrible addiction for decades and decades. We've been dealing with this. Alcohol addiction, drug addiction. I know there's families out there right now who would be grateful for services where they can help their family members to find sobriety themselves. Sometimes, somebody can go to an AA meeting or an NA meeting and find the help they need, but other times they need professional help. They need some counseling. They need to be in a place where they are safe from the alcohol that's quick at hand. And so we, as a state, yes, this is a horrible statistic that I think we should pay attention to. And I feel that there's hope for anyone who wants to become sober, and I hope that we can help to bring this situation to light so that yes, the state can be a part of investing in helping people find the sobriety that they need.
And Ms. Haaland, of course, right now the world is seeing both sides of the aisle very divided. If elected into office, what makes you the right person to bridge this gap in the state?
Thank you. Yes, we need to be united. We're all New Mexicans. We should all care about every single community across our state. During the time I was in Congress, I was one of the most bipartisan members of my class. I got bills passed because they were bipartisan. They were signed into law by President Trump. I want to work with anyone who wants to move our state forward. Yes, there is too much division across our country right now, and I would like to feel that I can bring people together. And I will make a point of that. I will build the relationships that will help New Mexicans. I will visit every part of the state. I will make sure that we care about every single part of our state. And so, look, it's a time now, this horrible time of climate change, when we have tragedies striking, gun violence, addiction, all of the issues that you just mentioned. While I was in this conversation with you, they're all going to require all of us working together. No one person can find the solutions that we need to address all these issues. So I look forward to the opportunity to work together with everyone, to roll up my sleeves and work alongside everyone to make New Mexico a better place. Because really, the work we have to do, it's all for our children. It's for our children and our grandchildren and future generations. That's our obligation, to leave a state that is successful to future generations.
Deb Haaland, thank you so much for your time and conversation here on our show. We appreciate it.